Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, we are going to talk about Selenium automation framework. Now, everyone asks the question, what is a framework and how does it help? So, in simple words, we can say that a framework is a standard way of doing things. And the next question would be why we need a framework. So organizations can obviously increase the speed and accuracy of the testing process. The process becomes very effective because you are going to repeat the same thing again and again. So especially if you are going to test large volumes of data, and you are going to run the same code again and again with variety of data, that's where the framework can be usable. It can be useful, and there is obviously a high return of investment in terms of resource engagement. That is, if you have a framework and you want to repeat the same test again and again, you deploy a framework and you free up your resources who can concentrate on other things. And using a framework, you can also make your automation test run overnight, especially where people in large organizations do the same thing. So three types of framework: data driven, keyword driven, and hybrid framework. In this video we are going to talk about data driven framework. We would be also touching upon keyword driven framework and hybrid framework in the subsequent videos. We would be also talking about your POM, page object model. So that's where we will get an idea on that. So let's go back to our data driven framework. So data driven framework is obviously useful for testing large volumes of data, and your keyword driven framework basically separates the coding from the test case and test set. So and your hybrid framework is basically your mixture of data driven and modular driven framework. So in this video, the data driven framework, we are going to use the TestNG Annotation Dataprovider. So data provider, basically it's a method, and it's a return method which returns a two-dimensional array of objects. So we will also see how to write that method and what's the format and all. Again, useful when you need to test large volumes of data, which will be present in your external files like CSV, XLS, or DB as well. So we are going to see an example using an XLS file, right? So the steps would be: you first create a class file with the required code, then you create a test data sheet, and that is in Excel. Then the step 3 would be getting data from Excel using the data provider method, and then you write a method to read the data from Excel. So these are the 4 steps which we are going to see. So let's go to our exercise. So what we are going to do is we are going to uh, go to a site called Barnes and Noble, and there we are going to search for some books. And once we get that book, we are going to that page or book page, and we are going to verify the author of the book. So my data is already in Excel file, right, which is for example, let's take this book, The Title of My Life, a novel. If you go to the site, you search for it, and once you get these kind of 3 books. We want to verify with this author. So once we know that the time of life, a novel, and this author is matching, we want to go to this link inside and then verify this author. So that's the test case now. So let's go back to our code. So I have the code written. Now let me explain the code. so that we understand how it want to be. Okay, so our test case, since we are going to use the data provider annotation, it's going to be a TestNG file, and this the going to the website, we are going to put it under before test Barnes and Noble. Then we are going to use a data provider method. Now if you see over this annotation @data provider, you can have anything over here, you can have any name, but make sure that whatever name you put, you should use the same in your @test, which we will come at now. It is the @provider, it would be double dimensional array. It will return an object, and since it if you see, this is a return method, and what it does is it calls another method called getTableArray, which is nothing but a method to read an Excel file row by row and column by column, right? So it will read this particular test case, it will read this Excel file row by row, and then it will read till it reaches this particular position. So we are specifying this particular format, that is, we are specifying the file name, which is nothing but your over here @test resource data book data.xls. This is the location which we are given. We are mentioning the sheet name data pull, which is your Excel file over here. Yeah, so you have mentioned the file name over here, and then you have book this data, which is here. Now how we are making work this how we are using this method to read the Excel file is down over here, where you have defined what exactly the getTableArray method is. So if you see here, we have used getTableArray method, we have defined here. We are using some functions to read an Excel file using Java. So for that we have imported the JXL. So this one, so this helps you basically read an Excel file. So this has built-in functions like workbook, sheet, and cell. So through this we are going to read the Excel row by row and column by column, and in this method we are defined the parameters, right? What all the parameters will come, that is the file name, the sheet name, and the table name, and we are actually using this inside the code, and using a for loop we are iterating row by row and column by column. That's the Java method to read the Excel file. Now coming back to our @test, which has the actual code, yeah, which is dp1, right? So @test will have an parameter data provider equal to dp1, which will call this data provider. So you can have multiple data providers, and you can have multiple @test calling multiple data providers, right? And if you see here, this is the actual code. Yeah, so this is the actual code which is actually writing. Now let's look at the code. So what we are going to do is we are now using the test data provider example. We have defined the variables book title and author name. Okay, it will go to it will launch the Barnes and Nobles through @before test over here, and then it will go to your data provider, and then from there it will go here @test, and then it will repeat the iteration until and unless it reaches the end of the file, which is being specified by your book test data one. Yeah, so if you see here, I will explain this try and catch code after some time. Now let's look at the code. That is, uh, we are finding the search box in Barnes and Nobles, that is this. Then we are going to type the book title. So if you see, we have put the book title variable. Now book title has been defined here. Now this basically book title, since we have written the data provider, it will go to the Excel file which has been specified here, and in that Excel file it will look for book title over here, and then it will take the data. So that's how it works. So it will do until and unless it reaches the end of the file which has been marked by this. Now all these methods has been written in the get table array method to read the Java Excel file. So I am doing a book title, and then I am clicking the button, that is this button, that is I am searching, and then I am again, once I get the results, I just click on it. Once I click on it, I assert the author name. Yeah, so that's the test case. Now if you see over here, now let's launch it in the Firefox. Now I'm going to launch that website in Firefox, that is I'm going to manually execute it. So I have launched the website Barnes and Noble, and I am going to search for the first book. Yeah, and if you see over here, when I launched it, I get this window. Now this is something called a model window, where you need to inspect this window and try to inspect this element. So if I do a right click, or I use a keyboard, and let me inspect element. So it says model container. So if you see over here, if I do this, this is something called a clause model. Yeah, so if I take an X path of this and put it here, it will, we can close this window. Now if you see over here, this will come only once, that is first time, and as we repeat the data again and again, this window won't appear. Now to handle this, what we have done is we have put it under the try catch. Yeah, so what I'm doing is, as soon as I launch the test case, it will see that whether this window is there, and it will if it is not there, it will catch the exception and then proceed with doing the test case. So that's how we have handled this particular situation. Okay, so now let's run this test case. Let's close this. So we are going to launch in Firefox. So it has clicked the cross button in the model window. Now it is searching for the Times of India Time of My Life and novel. It will click on that link, and once it clicks, I will assert the author as per the Excel file. Similarly, it will do for new moon. So you see there are a lot of new moons and the same author, so it will actually click on the correct link. It will verify the author, Stephanie Meyer, and then it will proceed ahead with the third data. So it has got that link, R.R. Martin. It will verify that. I think this is the last data, codename God, and it will verify the author again here. Verify the author inside it after clicking the link. So our test case has passed now. So if you see over here, it is showing green. It has passed with all the 4 data. Now if I do a refresh, it will generate a test output, and we can just click on the emailable report and see how the report looks. So the report is showing all the parameters, that is the time of line passed, this one, so all the 4 parameters have been passed. So that's what it will show in the emailable report. We can obviously add some external listeners so that we can generate report NG, which will look in another video. So this is how you basically use a data driven framework using Dataprovider. Now obviously there are different methods using Apache POI, where you can use Apache POI to read the Excel file, and the best part is you can use this code wherever, in whichever test you want. So for example, if I want to repeat the same test case with Wikipedia, I can go to Wikipedia code, and in Wikipedia code I can just change this. Yeah, so this, if I paste this code over there, I can basically uh, use the Excel file which is required for wiki, and use the code, and that's it. Your get table array remains the same. It is independent of the test which you are doing. So that's the beauty of this. And you can have a multiple data providers, so you can copy this in your existing code, and rename it as say dp2, and at the rate data provider equal to dp2, and then you put the Excel file. If you are given the path over d colon, you can just copy the Excel file over here and give the path, like how do we have given over here. So if you see, we have given the path of the Excel file in the Eclipse folder itself, that is test resources data 1 XLS, which is here. So this is how we can use the Dataprovider to run a data driven framework. In the next section we will talk about page object model and how it is useful for our framework. Thank you.